Another very, very prolific firm in the making of dolls with painted or intaglio eyes, German firm at this time, around 1910, was the firm of Gebrüder Heubach. Now, the firm had originally started making dolls that are loosely referred to as piano babies or piano children, and designed not because it had anything to do with a piano, except that every parlor had a big piano, and these were decorations you could put on top of it, so they became known as piano sculptors. And they had, I have an example here of one of the rarest ones they made, particularly in its grand size, which is so, so hard to find. And we always call it Little Boy in Papa's Shoe, because he's sitting in this big old shoe that's oversized for him, and actually probably his dad wore it out because the kid's toes are curling out the front of the shoe, and he's trying to lace himself into the shoe. Has this wonderful expressive feature, and typical of all of the Heubach figurines and dolls is the incredible sculpting of their hair. Every little detail. Clearly molds were used basically, and then a lot of hand detail went into it as well, because you will never find two that are exactly alike. And this is a really great example. This is another wonderful example. Now, one of the things I know some collectors do is they'll collect the figurines, and then they'll try to find the doll that matches that figurine in terms of the face. But here's a very wonderful girl curtsying, leaning over, and look again at the detail of the hair. Very, very fine. So Heubach said, well, okay, wait a minute. We got all these heads we've sculpted. We're putting them into figurines, but kids don't want these. Kids want to play with dolls. So let's make a line of dolls. We've already got the heads. So they simply had to change either turn it into a socket for a neck that could fit into a body, or turn it into a shoulder plate. And they did both kind. Here we have one that is a shoulder plate doll. And she is very, very similar kind of modeling. They would always do things like put little hair bows in the head, rather around the curls, and put extra glazed decoration on them. You look for all of those kind of features when you're choosing them. If you will notice that, you're going to see on the other side of my table in a minute, some of them have a paler complexion, and some have this very rosy complexion. There was a time when Gebrüder Heubach started actually putting a rose tint into the actual bisque before it was fired. So if you looked inside the head, you would see that it's pink tinted inside as well, unlike your ordinary bisque dolls, not ordinary, but most bisque dolls, that if you look inside the head, it will be purely white, and then the finish was painted on the outside. But here the complexion would permeate the whole bisque. We have this wonderful older girl. And then I think this one I love. I love her expression. It's so, so pretty. Okay. And then skipping over to the other side, this little girl, which is a particular favorite of collectors, and she was made with both with the socket head and the shoulder head, and this being the shoulder head variation. And she has a pink bow in her hair, and her hair is more of a light brown than a blonde, and it's more, you can see almost that you're getting into like the 1920s, because she's got that really short bob curls, and kind of a modern little girl, but very, very deep modeling. Their eyes are always described as intaglio, which simply means that they're not a flat plane of the iris and the pupil, but they actually have sculpting into the iris and the pupil. And then this wonderful, wonderful boy, who was, first time we sold him, was originally from the Mildred Seeley collection. And she just had extraordinary dolls that everyone loved. Then it went into Lucy Morgan's collection, and then here he is today. Wonderful example in his all original factory costume. And then this wonderful girl is the example of what I was talking about when I said sometimes you will find the earlier models do not have the pink tinting, they'll have a paler complexion. She is so expressive, so intelligent looking, and I want to just, yes, she has, look at her cheeks, the dimples that are impressed into the cheeks, not just a slight hint of it, but really deeply modeled. And I see she's got a ribbon award here too. First place in UFDC. Absolutely wonderful set of dolls. And here we are with the result of the painted eye characters and what happened. Sadly, and one of the reasons they are so rare today to find, is the painted eye art character movement had a short life. Really, the kids didn't like them. Parents didn't buy them, and there's a terrible story told in Cieslik German doll studies about how the factories, after a few years, went into their warehouses and they smashed heads because they couldn't sell them. Every time I read that, my heart just breaks. But at any rate, they did continue making dolls, and they made what children wanted. They made dolls with glass eyes, glass sleep eyes, but they tried to keep one of the good things about the art character movement, and that was to create dolls that had expression in their faces. So even though these dolls are all very, very beautiful, and you'd all agree that they're beautiful, and in some ways they're idealized children, they also show children with expression and movement and feeling about the world around them. So let's start over here on the left, and they're not all children. We have one of the rarest dolls, and we have 3 dolls here made by Simon and Halbig, who made dolls from the art character movement. And the tallest lady is their rare 1388 model, the lady doll, with this, again, I want to turn her so you'll be able to see her from the side as well, because until you can actually see the fine details of her sculpting from every particular vantage point, you really can't appreciate how very, very fine she is. And by the way, I love her costume. She has this wonderful cream mohair coat with a mohair collar with a fox head on it, the faux fox head, folks, and a muff with the cord handle. And there's shaded tinting on it. She's absolutely wonderful. So look around by her mouth. Dimples, 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 dimples. And then the beautifully painted teeth. She has her original eyebrows, mohair eyebrows, which are very rare to find intact. Super example in every way, and in this size, wow. We have another very, very beautiful example down here in all factory original costume, and this is a Simon and Halbig 128 model. So again, art character modified, a transitional art character. Doesn't have the painted eyes anymore, but more appealing to children and extremely rare, frankly. This sweetheart, in the front of the catalog, we have a picture of Mary Lou Rubright in her early days of collecting, holding this doll. So she clearly had it from the very beginning of her collecting years. This is the very, very beloved Simon and Halbig, known as IV. Not the name Ivy, but the Roman numerals IV. And that is how the doll is marked, SNHIV. What a wistful expression, such perfect bisque. This doll is a dream in every way. She captures the character look, but now she's back to being a child with glass eyes, and just a rare and beautiful doll. Other makers made the transition away from the painted eye as well too, and Mary Lou Rubright pursued the acquisition of those to really round out her collection. And I have a couple of good examples to show you. Gebruder Heubach, that I just showed you, their piano babies and their characterized children, went back to making the glass-eyed. And right here we have in center front, very, very beautiful, wistful, pouty-faced example. But not all of Gebruder Heubach's were wistful, because look at Dolly Dimples, and that's actually how she was marketed, made by them. Oh, here, this is a blue ribbon, first place 1975 at the Keystone Doll Club in Central Pennsylvania. Beautiful Dolly Dimples, absolutely gorgeous. When you can find dolls in their original mohair wigs, I say just cherish them, hold them to your heart, because there was a reason the manufacturers used these mohair wigs. Their softness, their gentle curls, they really captured the look of the doll. And she has also a very apt name, because I want you to check out the dimples in her cheeks and in her chin. Very, very strong, Dolly Dimple. And then we have the doll known as Wendy. This is the not how the doll was marketed, but a name that was given to the doll by an early collector, and so she's kind of known that way by collectors for the past half century. And a very beautiful doll, and very scarce to find. And then let's go back to this wonderful doll, Fanny, by Armand Marseille. Now, when I told you at the beginning of the art character movement, Kathy Cruz, for example, their doll was introduced. The first Kathy Cruz model actually has a face that is this model. They were all based on an Italian Renaissance sculptor who designed a child with this kind of a chunky little rounded face with a wistful, pouting expression. And Armand Marseille made their Fanny, and Cameron Reinhardt made their Philip, and Kathy Cruz made her Series 1 baby. And they all basically were that model based on, I think it's 15th century Italian sculpture. But Fanny is very rare to find and always has this wonderful, particularly wonderful body. I wish you could see it because it just has so many little fat wrinkles, and it's just a dandy, dandy body. And just look at her beautiful little party dress. She's probably sad because she went to the party and couldn't go out and play in the mud. I gotta stop making up these stories about dolls. But I know all of you imagine your dolls that way too, what they might represent. And then finally, on this side, we're seeing at dolls by Kestner. And Kestner was such a quality maker. They made no substitutions, they made no compromises. They needed perfection in their dolls. And you will very, very seldom ever find a Kestner doll that has a manufacturing flaw of any kind. They must have just checked them out. If they didn't meet their standards, out they go, because their dolls are always just perfect. But because they were so perfect, they were popular, and hence you find many today. You'll find many beautiful child dolls. However, keep your eyes open because some models are very, very rare to find. And for example, on this side, we have the Kestner, the boy, is their 220 toddler model. And I don't know, we maybe will see 2 or 3 a year at the most. So very, very rare to find. The 220 model by Kestner always comes in this wonderful toddler body and just grand. And on this side, then we have the very beautiful Kestner 241, which kind of looks like it's in the series of it looks like a Hilda, but an older Hilda, and it's very, very expressive and very, very rare to find. I'm going to turn her around so you can see. She has the greatest bonnet you'll ever see. Look at that bonnet. Is that wonderful? All original. She has a beautiful red flannel coat, antique of course, with a lace collar, and then the wonderful dress underneath that is virtually matching. Very, very beautiful, classic, a classy child, a very classy child, and wonderful bisque on all of these. And then another group of German dolls that I wanted to show you that are from the area when the art character dolls were kind of winding down and other movements were coming in, the glass-eyed dolls and the wonderful theme of the googly dolls. But let's start over here with this group. I have this pair because one of my happy memories back in 1979, we had an auction and the person had a lot of German bisque dolls made to be Asian children and German bisque dolls made to be Germanic children, German children. And she really liked this theme. So we had an auction catalog that we called Dolls East-West. And Mary Lou Rubright bought 2 of the most popular East-West dolls, both of them made by the firm of Kestner. And this was their beloved Hilda, basically their signature doll. To this day, I still don't know who Hilda was. Who was Hilda named for? Was it a child of one of the people in the factory? Was it a popular name at the time? Was it a European princess? No documentation has come out to say why was this doll named Hilda. If anybody knows, please tell me. And then they also did their fabulous JDK, their 243 model representing a Chinese baby. And in the catalog, we have the 2 of these facing each other on opposite pages, so here they come again. He's wearing this absolutely wonderful embroidered Chinese costume and has the most beautiful, beautiful face with flawless bisque. But I wanted to show you this because Mary Lou Rubright always was looking for the different and the special, so she found this fellow. And what's different about him? Of course, the painted hair. Very, very rare to find JDK 243 model baby with the painted hair. So again, look for, oh, and his big brother, by the way, or big whatever, the size. This size is so rare. This is a smaller size. There's usually a size in between. It's like a 16 to 17-inch size, but this is extraordinarily large for the Kestner 243, so it gives it really extra value because it's so dramatic and especially in this outstanding costume. And this fellow, wonderful for its petite size, but it's very, very rare hair. Now let's move to the other side of the table. Guess what came along? Rose O'Neal, who, by the way, is just about to be, next year, will be entered into the National Women's Hall of Fame. About time for that. And she well deserves it. But she so inspired the whole notion of the googlies. Even they had kind of been around for a while, but when that Cupid came along, everybody jumped on it and wanted to make their version of a googly doll. Now Kestner, the little one in the pink dress here, Kestner, who actually were making Cupids for Rose O'Neal, but they were paying her royalties, and they decided, well, you know, we could make a doll that's kind of sort of like Cupid, but maybe people would buy that instead of Cupid, and we don't have to pay royalties. So they did this, their 221 model, which is an amazing resemblance to the socket head Cupid designed by Rose O'Neal, but a really favorite doll with collectors. Always has this wonderful little chubby toddler body, and when you can find them with original wig and original plaster paint, this great costume, that's fabulous. And then other companies came along, like Hertel and Schwab, that introduced what they marketed as their Jubilee Googly. And I have this fellow to show you. There are quite a few other little googlies in this auction, but I wanted you to see this because, again, size matters, folks. This is a rare, larger size. And not only more cherished by collectors because of its rarity and size, but also because the larger size allows a bit greater expression of the face. Wonderful antique costume as well. His hat is really a little surprise because his hat was designed to be originally a candy container and then to be used as a child by a hat. So you can go in your doll room and peek under all your dolls' hats, see if they're really candy containers. And then everybody's favorite, Just Me. I'm Just Me. Introduced by Marseille at the end of the 1920s, and actually in this particular size used by Jenny Graves of Vogue as her very, very used for 1 year maybe, introduction of the Vogue Ginny doll. Remember that the Vogue Ginny doll was all about the costuming, not really about the doll. That came later on, but at the beginning, Jenny Graves was a seamstress, and that's what her whole purpose was. And this is in the little Ginny size, very, very rare to find, in a trunk with, I think it's 3 additional costumes and little caps. Absolutely wonderful. That was the way it was originally presented in the store.